Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life, a podcast where you'll gain insights from relationship experts and entrepreneurial couples who have moved through conflict and into a better life. Crack the clarity code and create deeper connections beyond the messiness of relationships. Here's your host, Judy K. Herman.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Better Relationships, Better Life. I'm your host, Judy K. Herman. Today, we're going to witness up close and personal how high energy fun can strengthen your marriage. I'm so excited about today's guests. My friends, Matt and Linda Lutz, show us that you can have fun doing business and life together. Get ready to laugh and take in the energy and excitement. We learn that lighthearted fun, adventure, and spontaneity are necessary ingredients to a vibrant and long-lasting marriage. Let's take a listen. Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life. My name is Judy Herman, and I have an amazing couple who loves to have fun, and we are going to be talking about entrepreneurial couples having fun as they go through this journey of life and raising kids. Welcome, Linda and Matt. I want to share with folks a little bit about you, but you can fill in the blanks. Now, I've gotten to know Linda, so this is really the first time that I've met with Matt, so this is really cool to see the both of you together. And Linda and I are actually in a weekly mastermind group together, and we've gotten to know each other, so it's just been really sweet. But I'm getting to know you a little bit better now, Linda, now that Matt's next to you.
It's okay. I've always been known as Linda's husband, so I'm very comfortable being Linda's husband.
Our identities are so wrapped up in our roles in life, aren't they, Matt? So yes, yeah. But so Linda and Matt, I mean, you're gonna notice the energy as you listen to this podcast, and if you're watching us by screen, you're gonna feel this. Okay, so I am so excited about meeting with you too. But Linda and Matt, they are a dynamic couple with an out of ordinary life story who are passionate about unearthing the true potential buried deep within individuals and organizations. And they've spent the last 30 years together in business and are still alive and happily married. That says a lot to tell about it. So the majority of that time spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week together, starting and running businesses, including a nonprofit organization, owning a rental company, and 21 years building and pastoring a church in North Carolina. They have two grown sons who live in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome, Matt and Linda. Yes.
Here.
Well, yes, what a delight. So tell us more about Matt and Linda. How did Matt and Linda become a we? I'd like to know the origins, of course. That's one level of my question, but there's also another, because it's very rare that you actually see couples that have been together as long as the two of you have, that you've raised your sons, you've been in business, and not only have you survived to tell about it, but you're happy. Like, how does that even happen?
Like everything else in our story, it starts off very unconventional as well. I was doing a show. I was a singer and dancer in Huntington Beach, California. And every evening after the show, I would stop by the bar on the way home, basically for a beer, maybe a babe. You just never know. But I went in there for the beer, and I came out with a babe. Because there was Linda inside hosting a karaoke show.
I was the karaoke hostess. Mm-hmm. And I got him up to sing, and yeah.
And then we sang together, and then she said, maybe you can help me with other part of our business, and do you have a headshot and a resume that I could talk to you later about another job? And I said, sure. So right there and then she gave me her phone number and her address. And this is Los Angeles. This is Long Beach, California. Single girls don't give out their phone numbers and addresses to strangers.
Unless they want a business deal, right? It sounds like this is a business thing, right?
I mean, at that time, when I was 23, I had started my first business, and it was entertainment, and mainly in the shopping center industry in Southern California. So we were doing all the Santa arrival parades and the Easter Bunny arrival parades, and I needed tenors for my Christmas caroling, and here was this great tenor. I thought, hey, I got to grab him.
It's the line that she used on me while I was sitting at the bar was, "Do you sing?" That was so she was really interested in me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not just your dancing and your singing, huh?
Just needed my voice.
Your tenor voice.
My tenor voice.
Yeah,
Well,
that voice.
Was that a sexy tenor voice, Linda? Was that sexy then? I mean, maybe sexy still.
I really wasn't looking, so it was really just initially, because I'm in a bar, I'm supposed to be getting people up to sing. So initially it was just like, hey, maybe I could convince this guy to get up and be one of my first singers, because that's always the hardest one. And so I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest. And then
Me neither.
Actually, you did notice me when you walked in the bar.
I noticed you, and then I decided, no, I'm not interested.
Because I was too skinny.
She was too skinny at the time.
Interesting. So that wasn't the kind of babe you wanted to walk out with the bar with. They're too skinny. You can't walk out with that particular babe.
Not for me. Not for me. So later, we started that relationship, and later on, to tell you what mindset she was in, she looked me straight in the face during breakfast one morning and said, "I haven't found a man I'd let be the father of my children. I'm going to have children on my own."
Well, tell me, let me hold that, Matt. That's a pretty interesting statement. How far into your relationship was it that she disclosed that to you?
Well, about halfway into the 8 weeks before we got married.
We were, so at that point he had started working in the business I had started. And we would hang out, and we were becoming really good friends. And I think we had known each other maybe 3 weeks. And I said that.
Yeah.
We were just friends at that point.
And you don't lay down that gauntlet to a guy whose job it is to get every woman he ever comes into contact with. So I was like, wait a minute, you haven't met me then. The pursuit begins.
Yeah. And then so he was, at that point in time, he had started working with me in some of my events. And of course, karaoke was a big part of what we did with the business. So I actually was having there was a Halloween party that had hired me to come and do karaoke at the party. And I always take a partner because the equipment was heavy. And so at that point, I had never seen him dressed up. He was always in shorts, t-shirts, and not clean shaven, because one, we lived in Long Beach, California, and two, he shaved at night before his show. So here's this scruffy guy all the time, and I really like him. He's a cool dude.
She liked my tenor voice and my muscles at this point.
So, he may not have fit the bill for the father of my babies, right?
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I asked him if he would work on this party with me, and then I said, "But by the way, do you have anything nice to wear? Because I like my host to be dressed up so that the guests can tell us apart." And so
I said, "Let me check one of my boxes. I might have some pants and a shirt in there somewhere."
So that night he showed up at my home at the door, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's pretty good looking. He's shaven. I was like, oh, wait, what have I been missing? What in the world? Yeah. At that point, it had been 5 weeks. Yeah. And 3 weeks later, we got married.
My goodness. Well, tell me more about that. In 3 weeks. So was this your aha moment? This is a guy once you saw him dressed up like that, Linda? Like,
well, it was the aha. I'd like to date him. Not I'll marry the guy. No, not at all.
As you're going to find out through our story, there's a lot of spontaneity and adventure in our lives.
Yeah.
And this was just the beginning of the spontaneity and adventure. It wasn't until after we eloped and ran off and got married, that I met her parents and she met my parents.
Oh my goodness.
That was a really fun day.
I
went home to see my mom. I purposely planned it when my dad wouldn't be there because I didn't want to tell him that I run off and got married. I
Neither did I didn't want to tell him either.
I think it took me about over a month to tell my dad I was married. But she knocks on the door and I'm like, "Hey Mom, how you doing? I'd like you to meet Matt, my husband."
Oh my goodness.
So it well, and I'll tell you what did it for me is we've been dating for 3 weeks.
We went to Vegas 2 weeks after that karaoke show.
Yeah, so
we were driving down Las Vegas Boulevard and I looked over to the right and there was the little white wedding chapel that's very famous in Vegas. And I said to her, "Look, honey, we can get married there 24 hours a day."
Oh my gosh.
I appropriately responded by laughing.
By laughing at me.
Because surely 2 weeks in, he didn't mean he wanted to marry me, right?
So that was the end of that proposal, and we went on with our business. And then the next week we were in San Diego, and we were just having our normal conversation about the business, and we were nipping at each other and going, "This needs to happen and this needs to happen. Yeah, but we need to do this." And the people that we were with, some of the employees that we were with, said, "You guys sound like an old married couple." And then I looked at them and I said, "Well, we would be if she had said yes to my proposal last week."
Instead
of laughing at me. To which she replied,
"That was not a proposal."
And I said, "Yes, it was. I said we could get married there 24 hours a day."
So let me tell you when the proposal actually came. So the next night, we actually, I guess it maybe had been a week, I can't remember, but the next night we had gone out to dinner and, we were talking and he's like, I really want to marry you. I'm like, my mom would kill me if I showed up married. And I gave a bunch of excuses and stupid ideas. And then he looked at me and he said, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you and I want it to start now." And
wow.
I said, "That's a proposal."
Yes, that's a heartfelt proposal. That's not an impulsive proposal. Hey, look at
pull out all the stops in this one.
The next day, we got married.
Yeah, next day we ran off and got married by a guy who looked like Johnny Cash, dressed in all black. And we had to borrow $10 from our witnesses to pay for the notary. And
oh my
just
goodness,
a fun time.
Yeah.
So this is so amazing, and here you are. I'm assuming 30 years later. Is this 30 years later? You've been married for 30 years.
30 years in November.
That is amazing. I am so interested in your journey because probably if you married anybody else, it would have been a totally boring life. Boring. But so there were times though. So I'm very curious. How have you as individuals changed? I think also the marriage too, throughout your various seasons, because we have this fun loving time right before kids come. And I'm curious how that has changed the two of you or changed the marriage. Like, obviously I'm making an assumption here. You do spend time other than laughing and joking, right? I mean, or maybe not. Maybe that's what's
we sleep, we eat.
We sleep, we eat, we work.
We work.
And
okay.
Laugh and have fun and yeah.
We have our own roles in the businesses that we've done. We've always known what our strengths and our weaknesses are, and we play to those. And I don't need to step on her toes when she's writing a training manual because I hate training. And she doesn't step on my toes when I'm writing a keynote speech because she knows that's my gig. That's my passion, my role in everything. That's where I come to life. So of course she proofreads everything and I proofread everything, but we know our roles and we work our roles well. And that just continues to go. And we know that when the rougher times come, that when there's times where, maybe we haven't taken in any money for a month and we're starting to get a little bit nervous going, blah, 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 that we can step into ourselves and pull away, and we know that's wrong. We know that we came into this as life partners.
That's right.
And that term is being used in many different ways, but if you look at the true definition of life partner is that you're a partner together in life,
every
in
aspect.
all of
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you can't just separate yourselves because hard times come.
Yeah.
You literally have to press in. And so we learned that along the way. Trust me, we've had our moments of slamming doors and getting and storming out of the house, but it always ends before the evening of us coming back together.
Wow.
That took for us, that if there was a secret, that was the secret, that there was nothing that was between us when we went to sleep.
That I want to hold that, Matt, because that's so very valuable and important when couples get into conflict. And we're going to get in conflict because we're human beings. And I've always looked at, yes, the lighthearted laughter, the difference between what John Gottman calls the difference between the masters and the disasters. Not that the masters are going to get any less triggered. They're going to get triggered, but the masters have learned how to get beyond it, how to appreciate the differences of the other. And I'm hearing that from you, like not letting the sun go down on your wrath. I mean, that's so mentally healthy, isn't it? Or how to even look at a bigger picture. But how did you even know that if you got together in your early 20s and you impulsively got married? I'm thinking, was there a time you woke up and you said, what in the world have I done here? Was there any moments like that?
You know, oddly enough, I mean, for me, some years into our marriage, somebody said to me one time, never doubt in the darkness what you know to be true in the light.
Ooh, wait, I want to hold that, Linda. Can you say that again? That's really profound.
Yeah. Never doubt in the darkness what you know to be true in the light. And I think of darkness as those challenging times, those frustrating times, those fearful, oh my gosh, are we going to make it times, versus the light, which is no. When I said I do, it was a permanent decision for me. Of course, there's extreme cases where that can't always be, but for most of the time, if most couples would say, when I make this decision, there's no out. Like I'm in it, like till death do us part. And when I made that commitment, it was like, I love this man. He's my best friend. He's my adventure buddy. He's, all these things to me. So in those moments where I'm frustrated or fearful or whatever, I'm not going to doubt the decision that I made all those years ago and turn my back and walk away. I'm just like, it was never a consideration for me ever. It's like, nope, I made my decision and I'm not changing my mind. And I think for me in those times, that's when it was like, no, I'm just not going to doubt it, even though it feels like darkness.
I spent time in the Marine Corps before I became a Disney dancer. Okay.
There's a story behind that. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so much. I'd love to keep y'all on for hours and hear all this.
But so teamwork was drilled in me from the very beginning. I was 17 when I joined the Marine Corps. I didn't have a very good childhood, so that was my training. My mentor was my boot camp, my drill instructor. Mm-hmm. I learned how to adapt and improvise and overcome. I learned that teamwork was important. So in the situation where you're a team in your business, in the worst times is the time you need another view. If you're alone in business, you're the only one. You have to come up with all the answers. You have to figure it out. But when you can brainstorm with a partner and that you both bring your own different perspectives, and you can get out of stuff much quicker by being together than fighting each other through it. So the idea of having something happen in your business or in your life, any part of your life, you have more of a chance to come together and figure out how to improvise, how to adapt, and how to overcome it. And it sounds like a military term, but it's a life term. It works in every aspect of life. So we know that growth without change is impossible.
Wow.
Change can't come. Growth can't come unless you allow change to happen. And so through our lives, we're not the same people. We're not in the same place we were.
Right.
But the one thing we remember is we never forget why we got married in the first place. What brought us to that place, the very core, the root of who we are, which is fun-loving, spontaneous, and adventurous.
Yeah.
And if we lose the fun, something's wrong. We have to get back to the fun. If we lose the spontaneity, something's wrong. We have to get back there. And the adventurous part. So that's where we live. We are checking ourselves going, okay, still fun, still spontaneous, still fun, it's still adventurous, cool.
Yeah.
Everything else is peripheral to the root.
Wow. I just want to clarify, it sounds to me like both of you were really clear on your values, spontaneity, fun, adventure from early on, which is amazing. And I guess coming from the same, how you met even, and then being business minded, it sounds to me like, opposites do attract. But there's so many times where I'm working with couples and they don't have anything in common that they like to do that's fun together. And so, I think that's a really unique thing that the two of you have that sounds to me like it's been super glue. The fun that you've had and the adrenaline rush and the serotonin and dopamine highs and all of that stuff has been something very vital for you two.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you call it values. Some people call it irresponsible. But I guess you could say our values are irresponsibility for a lot of people. But
let me back up. Tell me more about that, because here you go from being in the military to being a dancer at Disney World or wherever. And then also you were a pastor of a church. How in the world does that even happen, Matt?
Yeah. It's basically what I call, it's hard to define, but it's basically, if you want to call it chasing the butterfly. Life leads you, the universe leads you, God leads you, whatever you want to call it, leads you down a path. Now, a lot of folks are too afraid to follow that path. And that's where the adventurous part comes out of us. We follow the path, and that path will take you someplace that could be scary, but it's also fun. So I'm coming out of the Marine Corps. I'm going through this life change. I don't know anything but living in a welfare apartments and living in Marine Corps barracks. That's all I know. I have never made a decision for myself ever at this point in my life. I'm now 22 years old, and I'm like going, what now? So I just went around, and I realized that I always loved the stage. I want to be on the stage. And since I was in 8th grade, I was doing musical theater. Wow. So my mom lived in Florida, so I decided to go to Florida and chase that dream.
Hello, this is Judy K. Herman. If you're enjoying this podcast and are wondering how you can use what you've learned in your own relationship, you can go to my website, judycounselor.com, and take my relationship stress quiz to see if you can identify stress points in your relationship that you may be able to address with what we've learned from this great interview. I would love to support you. You've heard what my guests have to say. Now it's time for you to take action. Visit judycounselor.com today. Let's stay in touch.
Just so happened that I was able to get some shows. I got the show at Disney World, and that began the process of my love affair with stage. So if you really want to look at it, from that point on, I've been on stage. Whether it's at Disney World, whether it's pastoring a church, every single Sunday morning, every Sunday evening, every Wednesday, I'm on stage, not only sharing life-changing principles, but also entertaining them. So,
yeah, I think one of the things too is that we really, we didn't subscribe to the expectations of society,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't marry somebody after you meet them for 8 weeks. You finish college. No, I didn't. I have an associate's degree. I never finished my bachelor's degree. I had started my first business and didn't have time to go to school. So I was like, well,
Because it was profitable and successful.
Right. Do I quit business school or do I stop my business? Because like that didn't make sense to me. So really, as we went through life, we didn't follow the plan that society think, you graduate high school, you go to college, that's where you meet your spouse, but you get a job. And after you get a job and you graduate, you get a job, then you buy a house, then you have kids, like all the, the expectations that society tries to put on you. And we really were more about following our passions, our gifts, our abilities, and then we really aligned with each other's and we supported one another. That was a really big thing, because when he comes to me to tell me, oh, I think I should be a pastor, I'm like, wait a minute. I met you in a bar. This is kind of not my expectation.
It was the greatest bait and switch that was ever pulled off in history of the world.
Right. So it was learning and growing and like, okay, so yeah, this is good. Like we, once we decided to move back to North Carolina.
It was the first time we sold everything we owned and moved across the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then he ends up pastoring a church. And so I jumped on board with that and supported his dream and his vision. And I didn't know his story about church prior to marrying him. And so I learned it. I'm like, well, I'm in, let's just go for it. And so I did whatever I could to support the growth and the church and the people and all of that. And then there was a time where I wanted to start a nonprofit organization to help economically disadvantaged adults get jobs. And he's like, I'm all in and supporting you on that. Well, let's do this and move the finances around so you can quit your job and wait for the grant money to come in and we can still support ourselves. And so it's really been this journey of becoming who we were created to be and living from passion and purpose to passion and purpose. Like each season, right, we're discovering more of our purposes, but we're living in purpose and passion from season to season. And so it's just been this fun, spontaneous journey of following that path together.
That is beautiful. I hear so much healthiness with you all, because just the laughter, the fun, the adventure, following your purpose and letting go of things that just don't belong, I think is an amazing, how you're living this out and modeling this for us is absolutely beautiful. What kind of advice, Matt and Linda, would you give to couples that are perhaps listening to us right now or watching, and they're really in a rut? Let's just say that they're working so hard in their businesses. They're basically living parallel lives and the communication is broken down and there is stress all over the place. What advice, if you could give them one piece of advice, would you give this couple?
Oh my gosh. Stay connected.
I've always, in many years of helping married couples through those times, they have to go back to the beginning, the very why they got together. Nobody stands in front of anybody and says, I do, in front of their family, thinking this is not the right decision.
Right.
They go in with it excited and looking forward to the life together. And so you have to go back to the root. Our root was spontaneity, fun-loving, adventurous. You have to find that again, however you can. That's where you begin. You have to begin it at the connection point.
Yeah.
And at that point, when you have that connection point and it's alive again, everything else is like peripheral. Everything else is like minimal compared. You may be in the worst financial place that you've ever been in, and we've been there. We've lived in a tobacco barn that was renovated
into a cottage.
As a matter of fact, our first child was born in a barn. So every time someone says that, were you raised, were you born in a barn? He goes, yes, I was, as a matter of fact.
Oh my goodness.
But we've been in that place where I've had to jumpstart the car every morning to get to work and jumpstart the car every time I get home. And so we've been to that place. And though we had a baby in the middle of it. I mean, think about that. There was still, the connection was there. The moment was there, and that we held on to that and improvised and adapted and overcame.
Yeah. Everything has to come like your marriage and your relationship has to be where everything flows from. So if you're out here trying to do the business and it's not coming as fruit of your relationship, then it's going to put stress on your marriage. It won't succeed. It won't be received by the people. So when we take who we are and the core of our relationship, and from that place live out into our business, from that place and those values and that love, pastor a church, like everything has to come from that core connection and relationship. And if it does, you'll see greater response to it. You'll see a bigger impact that you're trying to make. But when you're focused on the external first, it'll destroy the internal, right? But if you focus on the internal first, it will create your external.
And that actually creates authenticity. And if there's one thing that every human being can see is authenticity, they can also see a fake in it too.
Yeah. Oh
so
my goodness, yes.
If you're out there trying to make something supposedly as a couple, but you're really not a couple, people see it.
Yeah, you can see right through it.
They will not want to be a part.
Yeah.
I know you had asked us a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had asked us a question about kids, and I definitely want to touch base on that one.
Oh yes, please do, Linda, because I've discovered that is that's one of the most challenging times when you're raising kids. And so share with us about that.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think about kids is that we didn't go and change who we were and what mattered to us when we had kids. We invited our children into our relationship. And I think that's a really big difference between people. I become a mom and I forget I'm a wife. And this is why so many people don't make it through the empty nesting season, right? Because I become a mom and all of a sudden I forget that I'm this fun, spontaneous life partner. And it all becomes about the kids and my identity gets wrapped up in it. And so we didn't do that. I mean, there's moments where you get your identity wrapped up in your kids, but for the most part, it was inviting the kids into our relationship. It's when I had started the nonprofit and I was teaching classes to economically disadvantaged adults at the Raleigh Rescue Mission. I would take the kids to the mission. They would volunteer. We would wrap presents and take them to families that were disadvantaged. And we brought them into our relationship and our values.
So it all begins from the very start. There's so many people who have babies, and then all of a sudden they change their life around. They make it quieter in the house, and they say, "Oh my gosh, it's all about the baby now."
And I can't go out. I can't do anything. I have the baby.
We, from the very beginning, kept exactly the same. The volume of the TV stayed. Our schedule changed. His schedule was his schedule, and that was the way it worked. Our oldest used to go to work with me. That's how we spent moments of our times taking care of the financial part of our So I'd be working so that we'd have income to pay the bills, and then she'd be working to have income to pay the bills. So when we had babies, instead of doing daycare, I took the babies to work with me to the church. Now I was also the drummer at the church as well. So I would, on Sunday mornings, Jacob, from the time he could stand, would stand right next to me at the drums.
Oh, sweet.
And we'd watch every single move I made. It literally just stare at my hands and my feet. Well, during the week, all he did was sit at the drums and try to replicate what I did. And at that moment, he was now a drummer. Did I stop him from drumming because I was writing a sermon in the next room? No.
Wow.
He was part of our lives. That was part of the lifestyle we had. And he drummed until his feet hit the ground. He could hit the pedals. And then he was our drummer on stage from that point on.
Yeah.
So we invited them in. We allowed them to be a part of the life that they were born into.
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot, this integration rather than having this traditional family. You had more of an egalitarian partnership in the raising of your children and integrating them into who you are. And wow, I love that.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really cool. And now Jacob is a professional musician and singer-songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, no wonder. Of course.
So when you're following your passions, you're aligning your passions, you're supporting each other's passions. Our youngest is also in Nashville. They're figuring out what he wants to be. But they're really incredible humans. And both have come to us and said, thank you for the way that you've raised us. Wow. And just watching their journeys of like, I would, they'd come and say, oh, well, my friend was asking for advice. And I was like, oh, this is what I would probably tell him as a coach. And he goes, yeah, that's what I said. And he's like 17. I'm like, what? Because they watched, right? Oh. And they were a part. And
we didn't send them to another room while we were counseling someone on the phone. They were pretending to play their video games, but they were listening to every word that was being said. So they've grown up in that world. We have to tell a story about them because
which one?
Oh gosh,
the cruise ship or the angel tree?
Gosh, I think the cruise ship one.
Okay. By the way, as you're thinking about this story, I want our listeners to know that Linda and Matt are amazing public speakers and they have so much energy on the stage, but the drum roll here, I can't wait now to hear the story, Matt.
So we made it a point as adventurous people that we would take a vacation with our kids. And the cheapest way to do that was in a cruise ship. And the most fun way, because then we could be in one place and go off on a boat and go on adventures to each of the islands that we were going to be on. We did that for a long period of time. It seemed like every year almost that we did that. But there was this time where we decided to change boats, change cruise lines. And we signed up for a cruise line that basically the average age of the person on the cruise was about 65 years old, maybe 70. They actually had a parking lot by the cafeteria for all the little carts that the little scooter carts, and you could park. You just see this parking lot full of scooters that people were riding around in. And here we have our teenage boys.
Yeah, maybe early 20s at that point. It wasn't that long ago.
It was. They were young. They were the youngest ones on the boat.
Yes.
And we were in the rotunda of the cruise ship where they were having a dance party with all the people in their scooters.
Ballroom dancing, mostly. Which we love, so.
So we're up on the top of the third floor, I believe, and we're looking down, and the cruise director, the cruise director's down there getting the place ready for the dance party, and the music starts a pumping, and it's not music from this 70-year-old people, it's from music from the 20-year-old people, and they're just boom, boom, boom. And there's this beautiful spiral staircase that goes all the way down to the bottom of the rotunda, and we're watching the cruise director doing his thing, and then all of a sudden, there's these two young whippersnappers
in tuxedos
dancing down the spiral staircase in tandem, one step at a time. And we look down there, and there they are. They're our kids, because everybody's looking up, and we're like,
who are they looking at? What are they? Oh,
there they go.
That's our boys.
And so, what were we supposed to do? All we could do is Join them.
Join them.
So we run down there, and here's the Lutz family dancers bopping and jamming all the way down the spiral staircase. And I know the cruise director enjoyed every minute of it, thinking, oh, thank you, Lutzes.
Actually, it's funny, the whole rest of the cruise, people would say hello to us when we were
Yeah.
walking around. Hi, you guys.
You're the kids' parents, aren't you?
I love this because people who are just only listening to this podcast are not getting this full. Go back and watch it. You can see Linda and Matt. They are actually dancing on the screen as they tell this story. It is amazing. Oh, I love the energy. It is flowing. And what you're modeling for us, Linda and Matt, is what couples need. We need to laugh. We need to not take ourselves so serious. I mean, if you have a conflict, you need to have gobs of laughter, like 20 more times of this kind of lighthearted laughter to every maybe one conflict. You're going to be able to get through it. The difficulties, the challenges of life. Wow, Linda. But you're modeling such good mental health, relational health, and also just the fact I'm just touched that you're willing to grow and to grow up and to integrate and yes, accept, adapt. Those are some adjectives that are coming to me as I'm describing or experiencing the two of you. We need more of that. We need more models of that, of people that have been married as long as you two have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How can folks get in touch with you? Because you have so much to offer in the way of not just live stages, but organizations, and then also you do coaching. So tell folks how to get in touch with the two of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're still coaching, and really about having a life and career you love at the same time. So it's connecting that passion and purpose with the contribution that you're making. So that's really kind of our sweet spot with our coaching. And then the speaking and corporate training. Matt and Linda Lutz, LUTZ.com. I'm sure there's going to be a link here somewhere. Is our website. You can go on there. There's a spot where if you want to get in touch with us, you can just click. You can grab a spot on our calendar if you want to talk to us.
Start a conversation, and if we can help you, we'd love to support. And that's just who we are. And if we can't really know somebody, who can?
Yeah, right.
You know what? It helps to hang around with folks, even if you are having some major conflicts in your marriage or in your relationship. Find people like Matt and Linda to hang out with, because it is contagious, and it really does matter with the people that you do hang out with. But yeah, all of this would be in the show notes. Thank you, Matt and Linda. I just think you're wow. I mean, I'm just like energized being with you and just this is just really special. And thank you so much for giving us such wisdom and energy on this podcast. Thank you
so much for having us. This was a blast. And we, like I said from the beginning, we like to talk. And so I hope we didn't take up all your time and
oh my
mess
goodness.
it all up in the process.
It's perfect. It was perfect. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Even though every relationship is unique, the conversation with Matt and Linda invites us to lighten up. We can take ourselves way too serious, and we know that life happens. But laughter is great for your marriage and your mental health, which brings me to next week's episode, in which best-selling author, speaker, and colleague Leslie Vernick informs us about destructive marriages and our journey towards self-respect and dignity. You don't want to miss this one. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review in the streaming app of your choice. See you next time.